Hi, I'm Charles O'Connor. I'm a Technical Product Manager at Dartmouth Journal Services.
And I'm Steve Haenel. I'm a Publishing Technology Specialist. We're going to, why don't you go ahead, do the honors.
Okay, we're going to show you how we built a workflow that's completely JATS-based and includes a full correction cycle as well as PDF generation.
Okay. So I'll get us started with just some high-level overviews of some workflows. But first, a word from our sponsor. We're part of the Sheridan group of companies, Dartmouth Journal Services. And there we are in Waterbury, Vermont. And there are the other companies. We're the publishing services end of the business. The other companies are printers. And this is what we do. We offer publishing services to university, presses, societies and associations. We're focused on the area after peer review through the editorial production processes, copy editing, graphics, composition, electronic deliverables, deliveries to printers as well. We have about 120 customers and 240 journals, and I mention that mainly so that you will understand our manic obsession with configurability in every system that we touch. So anything we design and deploy has to have maximum amounts of configurability to them. And that will be a sub-theme running through this whole presentation. You'll hear more about configurability. So first, let's discuss the traditional publishing process. This is probably familiar to most of you here in this room. You get your manuscripts and graphics in, and they go off to be processed in their own way. Graphics usually are processed, converted, sized, and so forth, and manuscripts go into copy editing. Then they're married back up at the composition stage, where pages composed, and from there, the author proof stage starts. The author typically gets a PDF, reviews that. The production editor gets that PDF and may actually have several PDFs to edit and collate into one master proof, which then goes into composition corrections, which is, I've been there many times, and you cross your fingers and hope it comes out well. It's a point in the process that's fraught with tension and excitement, and I'm not sure why someone hasn't written a thriller about just this point in the process, because that'd be good reading. Anyway, so you go through your composition corrections, and what's not really represented here is you get your PDF, but there are cycles of corrections and revisions going back and forth until you finally come out the far end with your deliverables, your XML, your graphics, your PDF, and so on. But this process has a lot of limitations, and there's certainly some questions. And one big question is, where's the XML in this process? The XML could start up early in the process at composition, and generally with larger vendors with high-end composition systems, they're probably getting XML at this early stage. But you notice that once you get into this very PDF-centric workflow, the XML is kind of in suspended animation here. There's no work on the XML, and this is really a big limitation. There's a lot of handwork done. It's time-consuming, takes a lot of time to get things back. There's redundant keying, which is all areas where you can have difficulties, time, money, and so forth. You may get XML at this stage after composition corrections, which isn't unusual, particularly for people with using desktop publishing software, or even XML at the very last stage from a PDF, which is fairly typical of very small publishers who want a conversion at that point. So let's talk about the ArticleExpress workflow and how that differs. So again, you have your manuscript and graphics coming through, and they're processed through copy editing and whatever graphics processing. But here we're clearly starting with XML. This is JATS XML. It's starting at this point and it's carrying through the entire process. Into composition, which is done with Typify. From there, it goes to author review through the ProofExpress system, which Charles will detail for you. Charles is the mad genius behind this, so with a good laugh. But you notice here, there's still a PDF. That's an important part of the process too. It's downplayed, if you will. It's not as front and center as the traditional publishing, but I think, was it Brian Chombley yesterday pointed out that there's a lot of value to the PDF in that it shows the quality and care of the content and how that content has been handled through the process. And I think that's a very, very wise thing for us all to keep in mind as we really want to get rid of that PDF. It's kind of gets in the way of online workflows and things, but still there's value to it. And in this process, author's going to want to see that PDF no matter what. Then you go into the production editor's review. They're going to want to see that PDF as well. But in this workflow, the changes are being done on the XML. Doesn't look like that to the author or the production editor, but that XML is being updated along the path. So it's not a secondary process of updating just the XML, certainly not a dual file or catching up in composition at the end. Then you have your composition corrections and back to your PDF, and your XML, as I said, is carrying straight through, and there you go to your deliverables. So that's a very high-level view. I'm going to come down a little bit lower, but first, the real elements of ArticleExpress are the early JATS XML creation. We use Xstyles from Inera, the automated XML-based composition system, which as I have noted is Typify, and our proof review system we call ProofExpress, which is HTML-based. So it's an XML editor, but it's browser-based. The editors are going to look at it, and it's going to look very much in a friendly HTML format for them. ProofExpress has a granular change tracking system, and that was discussed last year at JATS by Charles. It was a pretty intensive amount of work to get through that. And the validating XML editor with advanced tools so that you can manage what's happening with that XML as people are working on it. I don't know if that's coming through for the people in the back, but I'll walk through it just briefly. So really the backbone here of our process is our Artemis production tracking system, and it's an acronym, and I can never remember. It's Article Tracking Exchange something, Manuscript Information System. Let's call it that. And that is really kind of the glue that's holding this together. We have the users up here, and we have the various processes down here. So we get early from peer review, comes through, pulls in to Artemis, goes to manuscript prep. Manuscript prep is done by humans. They're still part of the process. This is the goal in mind here is Xstyles, but it's done in Word. Someone takes out the graphics if they've been embedded in with the figure legends. If tables come in as Excel or tab text, we still see those kinds of things. They all have to be put into Word format. And we begin by styling with a defined set of paragraph and character styles, which is all part of the beginning of the structuring that will lead to the XML. And it's a very important part of the process. Graphics processing takes place simultaneously. And notice things are going back and forth to Artemis. Artemis is passing data, but production files and configuration files to different systems. And that's really key to automating a lot of these processes. So most of those signals are web service calls. We also use a proprietary system we call ETP, which is a play on FTP that we use with our vendors that we've used for many years now, and it's been very, very solid, very reliable technology to help us automate. Okay, so your manuscript thing goes into copy editing. Well, excuse me, I missed our freestyle. We call it freestyle because we needed to call it something. So it's Xstyles SI, it's the server implementation of Xstyles, and basically you fill up that hopper and it runs through the incredible Xstyles processes, the advanced processes, the auto-redact, reference restructuring, citation matching, PubMed, checking, cross-ref, DOIs. It just does an amazing amount of things there on our manuscripts, off to the copy editor. Comes back from the copy editor. Typically, we'll have a post-copy edit review. So an editor is checking it out, making sure, answering any queries to them, that sort of thing. Comes back through, and then we get to an XML export. There's our JATS. Again, a lot of this is being handled automatically through Artemis, feeding systems, moving files, sending data. From there, it goes to our automated composition system, which we call PageExpress, and that's where we get our PDF. From there, it goes to the ProofExpress system for the author proof. And can't stress enough, this is the XML that's being worked on when it's processed and when it's in the proofing system. Editorial review, and notice we go back to PageExpress. It's very flexible in that iterations of a PDF can be created, which is very nice. The traditional process, composition would take hours at best, days typically, and this is down to minutes. Through the review processes, revisions, and final processing, and then out at the back end is packaged and delivered full article ELDs to online repositories. And notice also that Artemis can communicate with customers tracking systems if that's required, which in some cases it certainly is. And this is just a quick peek at what Artemis looks like from the user perspective. But you'll notice here these are tasks that are in a workflow, and again, we have 200 plus journals, and we must have 1,000 workflows literally. So this has to be configured and made usable based on the workflow for that publisher. So this is basically what the user is going to see: tasks in a workflow, leading them through the step. When necessary, it will send those files, close the task, open the next task. The user comes in and says, all my stuff is back from composition, time to go to CompQC. Authors are looking at these files and so forth. Okay, we're getting close to JATS XML. This is a Word file, and you'll see here that the paragraph styles are applied. There are character styles here, and these were applied by Xstyles, but copy editor needs to check and verify those, just as they would in any system where they are responsible for marking up a manuscript. And there's our JATS XML export, which is how it looks coming out of Word. It is what we would call publisher-specific JATS XML. That is because publishers have so many needs, foibles, if you will, how to mark up their XML. We have to match up. There was a lot of discussion, and we've actually been going through this for the 15 years I've been involved in this. Do we use a generic DTD, some universal DTD for our typesetting? Do we use specific DTD? For a while, we had our own DTD, which I'm sure probably only Bruce Rosenblum is from the people not in the company who would remember that. So we've decided for this system, it's going to be JATS XML. We'll match what the publisher normally provides their online host, because that seems to be the target that we shoot for. And that's the bar. We're not going to hit every flavor of NLM DTD out there. You got to be in JATS to get moving through this system. So, okay, I'm going to hand it over to Charles.
All right. I'm violating the rules. Sorry about that. One thing I'd like to point out in regard to the earlier presentation is that when we export using Xtiles, we use the launch feature in Xtiles to launch Schematron and the PMC style checker, so that any problem that can come up at that point is fixed while it's still in a very easy format to fix. It's before it gets into the system.
Case study number 7.
Now, the hardware of our system is the ProofExpress online web-based validating. I could think of a few more things. Editor, and it is used both by the authors and by the production staff. The Artemis team would probably say Artemis is the heart of it because that's where it fits in the diagram, but this really is the crux of the system, because all content changes must be made in the XML. So what are the requirements? Maintain XML from start to finish. The DTDs out here, the online hosts requirements are here, and the requirements of our various customers are here, 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 and here. So we have to be able to hit that, and we'll get into configurability in a little bit and what we have to do with that. Now, for authors, we want to give them a better experience. When we started doing PDF annotation for corrections, authors said to us, why do I have to learn a new program? These annotation tools are clumsy, etc. So we want to give them a word processor-like environment, a familiar feel, and also something that resembles what they see when they look at articles online. One thing that came out of a focus group that we ran rather early with some grad students, something we didn't know, oddly enough, was that the corresponding author very often has little to do with actually correcting the paper. They take it, they make copies of the PDF, they throw it around the lab, and collate that stuff, and they send it back to us. So we realized early on that we had to have a collaboration tool. And also out of that came out of that was the importance of the PDF, because these were like late grad students. They were just starting to publish, and they said, "You're going to show us the PDF too, right?" And we said, "Sure." And the reason was funny. He said that because when you see that typeset page, that's how you know you've made it. Now, for production editors, we have to have a robust change tracking system. I'm not going to go deeply into that, as we presented on it last year, and we also want to preserve a record of those changes across. So we use XSLFO to create sort of a representation of the HTML proof with the markup of the authors and editors' changes. As Steve mentioned, because we're a publication services company, we service many people. We can't impose a style, so we have to make the system throughout highly configurable. And what does highly configurable mean? We have to hit journal style, first of all. It has to be right to journal style, obviously, and there are a lot of implications in the XML there. We also configure for role access. So publisher 1 may say authors can edit the title. Publisher B may say, no, we don't allow them to edit the title. If they want to do that, they can add a comment or something like that to the proof. But each tool that we have in the system can be turned on or off for different users. And we also can enforce other business rules as well. Different tasks have different functions, so different processes can be run between different tasks. We can make tools such as schematron available for a particular task, make it so that the authors can request revised figures, etc. Now, what were the challenges of trying to do everything? The biggest challenges we had were in the track changes feature. You can have changes within changes. It's very easy to destroy markup. It's easy to destroy the XML and make it invalid by not enforcing things like the nesting of changes and the order of acceptance and rejection. And we immediately made that more complicated by having a collaboration feature so that everybody is working in that file, and you want to know not only what's the difference between version A and version B, but you want to know who did what when. And so the other challenges were in the customization. All of the little bits and pieces are highly configurable. In-text author citations, just that was making author date citations come out correctly. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as an example. Footnotes and affiliations. I mean, if you look at the front matter of 10, 20 journals, they are done in different ways. It's a correspondence line here, it's a footnote there, it's numbers here, letters there, symbols in different orders. All of those things have to be accommodated in a system that's designed to work for anybody who's publishing in JATS. So, to get to the point for the author wants to see something that they're familiar with. And so, if you look at the top bar here, they see, these are familiar tools from word processing. You have bold and italic, and they can make, small caps or monospace or things like that. They can add a comment. And below you see that there are some additional tools we have for inserting those more complex bits of XML, like footnotes, links, citations, and references. Now, once you decide to build an XML editor, you might as well start taking advantage. I mean, you have so many problems to solve. You might as well start taking advantage of some of the things you can do in XML to guide and guide the user, make it easy for them to add these more complex elements, and at the same time constrain them so that they can't do something stupid. So, in the case of the editing or adding reference citations, you can query the XML, create a list of citations they can choose from, and that's it. They can't cite something that doesn't exist. So it makes it, and we can do that for validating all sorts of things. If you add a figure citation, you can only do it to journal style, and you can only cite a figure that exists, etc. In addition to, another way that you can leverage the XML is that you can add tools that just would not make any sense in any PDF correction cycle. So we can use the eUtils from PubMed, give a search screen. If you want to add a reference there, then you can do it. You can put in whatever information that goes into the system. And because we didn't want to remake the wheel as far as creating good JATS out of that. We are using the Edifix product from, again, our friends at Inera. So that we just take that data from PubMed and we throw it at Edifix and they make it all nice and give it back to us. As I mentioned, we have a granular change tracking system. And I don't know how well you can see what's actually up there, but you'll notice that, if the formatting changes, you could have 5 colleagues having a formatting war about a particular piece of text, and somebody could format it and somebody else could unformat it, and we want to see who did what. You also see that one author could add some text and another author could add text within that text. So, we have inserts of magical text here. Well, the magical bit was put in by someone else. And so the nesting of changes showing who did what, and also it helps enforce the change tracking, the accept, reject order, because they can't accept the internal change without acting upon the external change first. It's the obligatory oxygen screenshot. As I said, here's a quick example of what goes into configuring a system like this. So it's a bit of I'll give you a bit of the secret sauce here. We realized early on that especially for author date citations, that the text inside was a real pain. So as soon as it comes into the system, we remove all of the text and make the cross-reference an empty element. But then we have to get all of that information back, and we get it from the reference itself. And so, but what do you have to do to recreate an author date citation? You have to show how it's basically structured, what's separated, between the citations. Do you have just a surname, as in this case, or do you give initials as well? You have how many authors you're going to have before et al. You have to say how et al. Is structured. You can put markup in there, formatting markup. Are they collapsed? If you have Smith et al. 2002 and Smith et al. 2007, do those get collapsed or are those separated? And how are they collapsed? There's a lot that goes into just that little bit of configuration, and each of the areas that have wide variation have the same sort of complexity in how they're configured. The author date was easy compared to footnotes, I can tell you that. All right. Now, again, the key to this system is that we have all XML changes through ProofExpress itself. And so, but we also need that PDF. But we're going we make the changes in the XML, and we just hit that PDF at any point in the workflow. So what did we need? We needed fully automated composition, create pages without human intervention, and we needed it to do it quickly because we were going to do it a bunch of times. We needed perfect or near perfect page presentation. Since we rerun the pages, any sort of tweaks that we would have to do in the InDesign file or would be undone if we reran the job. So it has to be pretty darn good from the get-go, certainly no touch for proofs, but at some point in the process, you always want to, somebody's going to want to tweak something. That figure, it's over column, the second column, I want it over the first column. Somebody's going to want to do that. So we needed to be able to make minor changes. And so any sort of purely one-way system wouldn't work for us. And so we initially thought of something like FO, but we couldn't do it. The standard of quality is too high, and that one-way trip is too scary. So the answer for us was Typify. It's an InDesign-based system. InDesign, unlike people who know FO or could write processing instructions and do things like that, people who know InDesign are a dime a dozen. So that's not. But so it's
He could
my
feel
laugh
me squirm from here.
But and so people who work in InDesign, it's a skill that is out there. It's a findable skill. And so does Typify do out of the box everything we wanted? Not quite, because we had some challenges. Challenges like large floating elements can present a challenge in an automated system. Unbalanced columns. Since we're hitting the page composition at different parts of the workflow, we have proofs that look different than PAPs that look different than the print version. And also, we needed to be able to have a system to move assets into and out of the Typify server. And we needed what happened in page composition to come back to us and to inform our workflow. So if somehow a figure was missing, we need Artemis to be able to read the log from Typify and say, well, figure got moved, who cares, figure wasn't there. Well, we've got to loop back into workflow and have those assets added by the person who forgot them in the first place. So the answer to that is to these challenges is in scripting, and Typify and InDesign give us a scat of scripting opportunities at different parts of the page composition flow. And so when the document comes into the system, we can have a script run. When at the end of a page composition, the system can look at it and say, is there something that needs to be done with the script? At the end of the composition of the entire article, it can look and see if there are problems such as floats that ended up in the references or things like that. And then it says, oh, got to restart that job because you can't have that. So just a quick example. This is a spread that was done without scripting. I'm sure the people with very good eyes can tell that the last word of that figure legend is the, which is an unlikely last word for a figure legend. It's actually overset. It was overset in InDesign, cut off in the PDF, and that's not desirable. And then across the spread, you see that you have a big white space there, just staring at you. So with scripting, we get that, which is, a whole lot prettier. We have the figure legend continued on the next page, and we have the columns nicely balanced. As I mentioned before, we have different parts of the workflow where we need a different look to the PDF. And so we just use layers in InDesign and call different job options through the web services interface of Typify based on the workflow stage. So what do we get? We get superior layout over many other types of automated systems. We get the ability to tweak the layout should, something need that. The page production, it's minutes in Typify. And we have good file transfers between Typify and our Artemis systems, and we get good warnings out of Typify, and I'm always asking for more, so that we can inform our workflow, loop our workflow, make decisions in any of those cases. Now, this is the funny bit. The good news that Debbie was talking about is that we are live in 2 weeks. And so I was excited about going live. And so is our development team. They're supposed to give us our business acceptance build tomorrow. They got excited and they started deploying today. So that's the we hope part of the time for a demo. So hopefully this works. I'm kind of this is pins and needles time for me. Oh, good. No errors so far. So as I said, we have a online looking presentation for the author, but unlike what they see in their online journal, they can actually just go in here and make changes. And this is the key to the whole thing, is the fun bit. Because nobody's interpreting the changes that the author makes. They're just making them right in the XML. The XML is underneath here. It's being updated. As you make these changes, and you can make something bold, you can do whatever it is you want to do. And that's going to be the vast majority of the changes that somebody wants to make. Really, text changes, insertions, deletions. But really, it's all the other tools that make it more fun. So if you want to insert a reference citation, you have this list. So say I want Bernard, and I insert that citation. We get Bernard, and it's 2-journal style, and it's collapsed because that's this particular journal's style. I can put in a citation for a figure, and we can make it so that they only have the journal styles to choose from. And they can cite figure 22, which doesn't exist. So no, they can't cite figure 22, but they can indeed cite figure 2. And what else can they do? Oh, all sorts of lovely things. As I said, you can use PubMed search. So say add 2015 and let's see what Jeff Beck has published this year, and search there, and we get a list of all of the things that he's published. He's apparently been very busy. It's still early in the year. And we proceed, and this is, as I said before, it's going out to Edifix, taking that data, telling, it's going out, it's getting parsed, it's coming back in as JATS. Again, to journal style, and we look at that and we say, yep, that's the one we want. And it gets placed in the list, and the author is given a prompt to cite that somewhere in the text. They can't cite it in the text if, they can't submit their article if they don't cite everything. There's all sorts of validations and things like that that happen. And again, to the point of the earlier presentation today, where you're talking about, on one hand, subsetting the DTD to gain control, and on the other hand, having schematron or other tools to look at your XML to gain control over what it can do. Having tools that constrain what the user can do is kind of a third way to really control what happens in your XML so that the wrong thing can't happen. How are you?
Well, we've got about 15 minutes. There's plenty to show, but
We can show you more.
Started early, you can keep going. Show us.
Oh, we can show you more stuff too. We have, basic, navigation through author queries. This is, there are no author queries. That's disappointing in this one. Tables and figures. Well, the good thing about author queries, it's again a way to enforce business rules. Something else the author can't do before submitting is fail to answer all the author queries, which is, certainly happens all the time. We aren't doing display quotes yet, but what we do have is, and let's see, what I can show you is what we have is a configurable tagger tool, because part of I was really afraid of technical debt and having somebody, a customer want to have some tagging like display quotes. No. Do we have a tool for that? No. But what we do have is an ability to take some text and tag it. Oh, I have to run file cleanup before tagging, which, let's see. Now this will be the, yes, the system caught me. But I'm not going to keep doing that. But what we did is we made a configurable tool, and it's purely based on a configuration file that says it describes how a form should be created, what information is necessary to put in that form, and then what the model of the XML would be. And so if somebody says, hey, where's your display quote tool? Then we say, okay, we'll have to take the tagger tool and configure it so that it can make that XML structure and ask for all the information that's necessary.
So basically the underlying model driving the editing process is not the DTD or schema or formal spec of the document as a formal model so much as it is the editorial model, as it were. In other words, there's another model in play in the sense that you're configuring to an editorial process which then has JATS behind it rather than configuring straight to JATS.
Yes, well, the JATS is there.
Right, but just because something is in JATS doesn't mean I can use it here.
No, No, that's very true. I mean, and I can tell you that in configuring for a new journal, you have to get it right. You have to do the configuration correctly so that, because if you configure it to have footnotes that are, affiliations that are numbered, and into the system comes one with letters, then that's not going to work. And so for any particular job, you have a setup process that I think is about, I've done a lot of setups for X-Styles, and it's about the same order of magnitude of effort to make sure that you have the journal style nailed. And in the case of anything that's new or there's no specific tool for it, yeah, then you have to look at that specific tagger tool that when I first sent it to the development team, they actually ran with it and used the sort of data model for that to drive every other tool as well in the system. Oh.
Why don't we
figures?
clap? Questions can include things you'd like to see on the demo because he has it up. So, yes.
Alex from yesterday. You did it. Way to go. You actually made a JATS WYSIWYG editor that works really well as far as I can see, and that's tremendous. I really want it, and I know I can't have it, so I wanted to ask you two things. One, this isn't typical of publishers I know, but if you wanted to leave like a demo instance up publicly for people to see and try out and see what you've done, I think that would be hugely appreciated.
Okay.
And two, I was wondering if you could provide a cost estimate for the development of this thing. Something ballpark.
That probably keeps me up at night if I added all of that up. I don't know that I could really share that.
Okay.
I'm a tech person, not a business person. It's in length of time, we've been in development for about 3 years.
Okay. I'm not surprised. You did something that no one else has done, so thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Rebecca Mooney, Science Magazine. I was wondering if you could talk a little about how the collaboration works. That is a painful point for us, and especially on the back end, storing the XML and storing the assets and checking in and checking out. I was wondering how the collaboration works with this tool.
The collaboration works. The author gets their base URL. It's a secure URL. It logs them into the system, and then they can themselves share it with their colleagues by giving their emails and other information, maybe throwing a note in. Now, the system it's not like Google Docs. You can't have 5 people in it at the same time. It's one document that everybody gets to play in. And so if collaborator X comes in while the corresponding author is in the system, they get a notification and they get an email when he's done.
Hi, Greg Fagan, Data Conversion Laboratory. It looks like a great tool, and I can see production editors loving this, loving working with it. And I could see some authors liking working with it too, but are your publishing clients concerned at all about authors embracing this? And are they offering some sort of training for them to work
Well, first of all, we try to make it as shallow a learning curve as possible and make it as word processor-like as possible. I can tell you from the live author testing that we've done, authors actually like it a bit more than the production editors do. Because production editors, it's a change to them, whereas for authors, I think that the ease of making edits is it's something that they really appreciate.
I can see that, but do they just, I mean, do they get this with no kind of notification that says, here you go, have at it? Or is there some level of intervention from the publisher to say, if you need help, we'll show you how to do this?
Well, we do, I don't know if the tutorials are hooked up to this. We do have tutorials. We have a help system. If you look at the help index, you have a good help system. We try to make that as robust as possible. If I came in as an author here, there would have been a welcome page that says, come in, do your thing, and also the way we've made the tools insofar as possible is that they're unavoidable if they're trying to do something. If they're trying to edit a citation, just by clicking in there, they want to put their cursor there, the form comes up. They don't have to go looking for something and trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Ken from the IEEE. Does your editor handle math? And if so, how does it?
How does it handle math? This is one of my least favorite parts.
I was told there'd be no math.
And it's not my computer, so I didn't get to to fake it by accepting the Java warnings before, but we use MathFlow from Design Science, which maybe this is the part that's not going to work. But where did the Java warnings come from? Unfortunately, it's Java-based, and this is something we want to move to a JavaScript-based system. Is it hidden behind? Yeah, this is especially since. Why is that not there? But believe me, it's real. No, I'm wondering why that's not coming up as it normally does. Usually, you get a nice enable Java right here in the system. So I don't know. This may be what isn't working with the new build today. Minimize the entire. Oh, minimize the. Okay. That's not something we would want to be. No, I don't see it there.
Why don't you describe the process for handling the equations as they're supplied?
So, it's MathML underneath, and so when you find an equation, you just click on the equation, the editor comes up and gives you like 15 Java warnings, actually one, and then you can edit it, and it's a interface that's very much like Design Science's math type, and so it's again a tool that math-oriented authors are quite used to using. And on the composition side, we use, instead of images, because InDesign doesn't understand images, or it doesn't understand MathML, I'm sorry, we use MoveMen math tools, which actually does a very nice job of setting equations.
What do you do when the authors actually don't know how to properly edit? I see that every single day.
That they don't know how to what?
How to properly edit math. They don't know the rules of the editor. They don't know rules of math. It doesn't mean they don't know the content. They're expressing like someone who is not a native speaker of English wants to write a philosophical essay. Thoughts are there, but
Well, I mean, we can't crawl into their minds and make them smarter than they are. If we could, we'd all be out of jobs. But really, the best we can do is give them a tool as much like the tool that they used when authoring their paper as we can possibly give them. And we have the change tracking so that the production editor can then go in and see what that actually looks like, and what the author has done.
And the author can insert comments.
And, and the author can insert comments. If there's something that they're like not clever enough to figure out, we encourage them in the welcome screen to, if you can't figure something out, just leave a comment. We'll I want to do something here and I don't know what to do, so blah, 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 blah. And insert the comment. And then there's a little marker there, and the production editor can then review that and make that change for the author if they haven't figured out how to do it.
Bob Dreyfus from ASTM. Similar to the last question, how would you handle inserting tables of any complexity?
The tables are all in the XHTML model, and so we use. Do I have any tables here? No, I'm sorry. I should have chosen a better file for you. But the tables, we tend to restrict the structural editing of tables to only the production editor, so merging cells or splitting cells. All of these things are basic. Underneath the ProofExpress system is XOPUS, and they have a range of tools for editing tables, and we've added tools to that. There are things that it didn't do. We wanted to be able to align on a character, like a plus minus. That wasn't out of the box. We wanted to be able to add rules and things like that. And so we took what was in XOPUS to begin with, and then added some other tools there. And unfortunately, I didn't have a table here. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Hi, John Muning from the New England Journal of Medicine. I'm curious about the role of PDF in this. You're showing the authors the content, and you're asking them to work in the XML more or less directly, and yet you have the download PDF. Is PDF always available to every user of this system? Do they get to run it again to see how their content would be rendered? And how do you keep them from paying too much attention to the PDF and not enough attention to the content in the editor?
Well, we hide it up here, first of all. And there's a whole lot of space that's not the download PDF bit. And if I were coming in as an author, and I'm not coming in as an author, we do realize that there are users who will want to bail on a new system like this. And so we make the PDF available. When they try to download the PDF, we say, hold up 1 second. Now, this is for reference only, you realize. Or if you really want to, you can annotate the PDF, and but all your like if you had changes here, we're tossing them, and you'll have to make all of your changes in the PDF, because it would be a nightmare for us to have some changes here and some changes there.
I was going to say, you're not going to have a production editor standing by to carry the changes over for the author into this system for them.
Well, that's actually, if they choose the PDF annotation route, that's exactly what we would do, is do that. That's not ideal, but we realized that we had to give them, a safety blanket if they needed it.
And just another question, is there an applied view, so that people could see the result of the changes that they make?
Oh, you mean?
In the editor, so that...
Oh, so like, for example, if you added text here.
Yeah.
You add some text, and then you can turn that highlighting off.
Okay. So they would be able to actually...
Yeah.
Anyone else with a question?
Anyone?
Thank you very much.